Hello everyone, Nick the DM here with some Dungeons & Dragons lore. Today we're taking a look at the creation myth and the origins of the Kobolds. So let's get into it. Kobolds are generally not structured enough to have a common history shared among the tribes, but they do share many tales and folklore. Surprisingly, kobolds are very good record keepers, engraving the events of their lives into the walls of every new layer, regardless of how many times they migrate from one location to the next. Like all races, kobolds have, among their folklore and tales, creation myths. It is said that a number of these are quite impressive. Two creation myths of the kobolds that are known of throughout the editions, interestingly enough, both contrasting stories, come from 3.5. And apparently, as far as my research has shown, from no other edition have we seen a kobold origin. The first story comes from the Ecology of the Kobold in Dragon Magazine issue 332. So I will read part of that passage here. Quote, "Shortly after the Queen of Dragons laid her first clutch of eggs, an army of thieves invaded her lair. Enraged by the intrusion, Tiamat sprung from her mountainous nest of gold and gemstones to crush the interlopers. Her merciless teeth and claws tore through scores of intruders, while her terrible breath weapons destroyed hundreds at a time. The attackers hurled countless swords, spears, and arrows against the chromatic dragon. Most of the weapons shattered harmlessly against her formidable hide, but as the battle wore on, those few that hit their mark began to take their toll on the mighty goddess. Amid the chaos of the frenzied attack, the swiftest of the bandits snatched up fistfuls of treasure and attempted to flee. The boldest of these struggled under the burden of even the smallest of Tiamat's magnificent eggs. Upon noticing the violation of her nest, Tiamat let forth a thunderous roar that brought down the ceiling of her lair and its connecting tunnels, crushing the attackers and trapping the escaping thieves. Weakened by innumerable wounds, Tiamat crawled through the rubble of her lair and collapsed upon her nest. Needing time to recover from her injuries and unable to adequately protect her incubating brood, Tiamat used the last of her strength to cause the first of her precious eggs to hatch early. Punching his way out of the still hardening shell with a stinger-tipped tail like that of his mother, Kurtulmak entered the world. Infused with a fraction of Tiamat's divine power, Kurtulmak understood his situation and immediately set out upon clearing the fallen rock from his mother's lair. As he worked, he concocted a way to single-handedly defend the entire cavern from further intrusion. Collecting the weapons strewn about the lair, Kurtulmak constructed hundreds of devious traps to riddle the floors, walls, and ceilings of the vast chamber. Satisfied with the impenetrable perimeter of deadly mechanisms and pitfalls forming around her nest, Tiamat charged Kurtulmak with reopening the tunnels connecting her lair to the plains and then fell into a deep slumber. In order to foil further intrusions, Kurtulmak began carving a twisting maze-like network of passages unfathomable to any but himself. After cutting through miles and miles of rubble, earth, and stone, Kurtulmak eventually came across a niche filled with a small portion of his mother's stolen treasure. As he collected the gold and gems that had become fused into the living rock intending to return them to Tiamat's lair, he also discovered one of her pilfered eggs. Knowing that the egg had been away from the nest for too long and deciding that his immense task would be easier with help, Kurtulmak caused the egg to hatch, creating miniature incarnations of himself. Thus, the first of the kobold race was born. Working alongside their creator, the kobolds quickly learned the art of mining through the earth and soon had discovered other caches of treasure and wayward eggs, which Kurtulmak also caused to hatch, further proliferating the kobold race. Kurtulmak also showed his people how to construct wily traps and various defenses in order to secure the newly carved tunnels. As creatures began to discover and explore the passageways, Kurtulmak taught the kobolds the art of ambushing enemies and the wisdom of entering battle only with the advantage of superior number. As the kobolds grew in number, they continued digging an ever-expanding network of tunnels, eventually reaching every corner of the material plane, where they established layers of their own and began to flourish." End quote. Their next creation myth comes from Races of the Dragon, also from 3.5, and it is just as extraordinary as the last one. Quote, while Kurtulmak is reputed to be a mortal ascended to divinity, kobolds credit Io, the ninefold dragon, with their creation. It is told that when Io first created true dragons, they were originally immortal gods, less powerful than Io, but much like him. To make each one of his creations distinct, Io gave each a different aspect of his personality. These divine dragons rarely got along, pursuing only one goal in common, the acquisition of material wealth. The true dragons quickly realized that they lacked the power to manipulate creation in all the ways necessary to accomplish their goals, and they petitioned Io for aid. Io, being an impartial god, would not play favorites with his creations and gave each dragon the same choice. He taught them how to create life by giving up a piece of themselves, but he warned that in doing so they would permanently be rendered mortal and eventually die. The life they created, however, would serve their desires without fail. Perhaps not yet wise enough to appreciate their divine existence, the dragons accepted the knowledge Io offered and departed for the world below. They took up residence in widely separate lands. There the true dragons did as Io instructed, each severing a single limb. Not only did each limb start growing back immediately, but the severed part also grew into an adult dragon. The original true dragons thereby gained mates. Furthermore, wherever the dragon's blood had spilled, little creatures began to emerge out of the ground, with alert crimson eyes already looking up at their creators for guidance. Thus were kobolds born, witness to the moments during which the immortality of the true dragons slipped away. End quote. While neither of these origins have been disproven, they both link the kobold's origin to dragonkind. This would explain why they worship dragons so much, quite often as deities, even normal, common dragons. Of course, there is a lot more to the kobolds to cover, including their deity, the first kobold, Kurtulmak, and his rise to divinity, and the kobolds themselves, but I'll save those for other videos. Anyways, that is it for the mysterious origin of the kobolds. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like and maybe consider subscribing for more videos like it. And if you have any suggestions for what I should cover next time, leave a comment down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!